Okay, this is just to dispel a few myths. Harmonica straight out the box, it's not been tweaked, nothing. So listen out for 7 overdraw. 4, 5, 6 overblow and blow bends at the top. Forgot where I was then. Did a 1 overblow at the bottom as well, but I didn't sustain it. Because depending on high and low harps, the sustain on 1 overblow, the way you're pushing the air, can be a little bit of a challenge, but you can sort that out. And of course, if I had 5 minutes with this, I'd sort out the 7 overblow to get it better. Just to dispel a few myths, it's capable of getting all these notes with a harmonica out of the box when you haven't even bothered to go in and tweak it a little bit. Alright? And the main thing is that these things are possible. It's not rocket science, and with the right coaching you will get there. And of course you can play an awful lot of blues without using any of these particular techniques. Okay, with the blues harmonica today, I want to give you some ideas on side slipping. That's what I call it. You won't come across anybody else talking about it, so I'm going to introduce it to the wide world for the blues harmonica, or an approach anyway, because I don't believe that anybody does approach it. I don't hear it in their playing or their approach. Not an integral part of blues, of course. Blues doesn't have to have all this lots of complexity. In a lot of ways blues is very, very simple, and if you're just starting out on this great little tool, it won't take you too long to get going if you get with the right people. I coach from people starting out, beginner level, intermediate and advanced. So stick with this particular one that I'm talking about today. It might sound a little bit of jargon, a little bit of mumbo jumbo as I call it, but all relative and useful for the future for those that are in different areas. Okay, chromaticism, scales, chromatic scales. On a piano, a 3-year-old child, for example, could get their finger, go down to the bottom end of the piano or keyboard, 7.5 octaves, move up every note one at a time. Every time they find a black note, hit that, then back onto the white notes, all the way up and all the way down. Starting and finishing on any point, there's a chromatic scale. An interval, for people that are not aware, is the distance between 2 notes, and the smallest interval is a half step. Okay, what we call a half step. That's the smallest interval. And a chromatic scale is moving up and down the half steps. If you're on a guitar, for example, obviously a young child isn't making these weird and wonderful shapes that we do, but they can go up the string 1 fret at a time, and they'll get a chromatical run. Okay, quite straightforward. Some instruments are more difficult than others when you get into brass and woodwind and how to see and find out, and each have their complexities and each have their idiosyncrasies and easy things to do. Okay, so just listen at this. Okay, so what I'm doing there, I've got a C harmonica, and I've played a little phrase in 2nd position. Now, side slipping. What I'm doing, I'm moving half step up and a half step down off the key I'm playing in. And it's one of the first ports of calls for an improviser outside playing mainstream blues. In jazz, before we learn all these complexities of Coltrane after Charlie Parker, after Bird, before we get into the leaps of Brecker and all that, and then we work on substitute harmony and the way Bill Evans moved into the way on piano of changing these harmonies so they opened up the way for modern jazz. Side slipping, it sets us up certainly in the jazz walk for bebop and the Lydian flat 7, what we call Lydian flat 7. But we can use this in blues as a side step within the blues that we're in. And that's one of the things that I coach on. It's a great little tool. You might never use it, but by working this way, it'll facilitate your playing no end. And it's the first port of call that you would do on, or I would have coached guys on horns to do, to get facility. Alright, so if you were in third position, for example, alright, then you just go up to D sharp and you drop down to C sharp or D flat, yeah, etc. And that little idea is something that you should eventually employ. Now there are certain notes, and blues players, guys starting out, we use things called the overblows and overdraws, and we use them, and some guys go on at great length about, you know, they're some sort of god because they can do these things. No, it's not too difficult. You will get there, don't worry about it. However, and there's lots and lots of things you do en route playing, and some professionals never even use them, alright? And there is some of the challenges, particularly probably the most challenged I'd think is probably, they're all okay once you get coached the right way, but 7 overdraw can cause people a few little problems, and I have ways of being able to coach on that sort of uniquely my way, but also other ways of emphasizing or implying 7 overdraw. 7 overdraw is interesting because when you're playing your second position blues scale, we often use the 4 draw bend, the 1 draw bend, which is in second position is a flat 5, in third position would be a major 7th, and in fourth position would be a major 3rd, etc. But it's quite an important note. Now, when you're playing at speed, you probably wouldn't you wouldn't float 7 draw in. You'd keep it in pentatonic. But you know, it can be an important one to get, but it's not necessary. Okay, so don't panic over these things. In the past, I've come across people who can spend an awful lot of time trying to get these notes. It's a bit like someone that's sat at the piano and they can get all the notes, but it's about playing, isn't it? Alright, you'd be better only being able to get half the notes as long as you could play something. So that's kind of how it is. And also, if you were playing a chromatic scale on this, if I played the chromatic scale for you, I haven't got time now, but basically out of my head, because I can tell you this way, I'd probably start in, say, let's see, 9th position. That's right, 9th position, which is A flat, then move to A, which is 4th position, B, 4th position, B flat into 10th position, B, which is 6th position, and C, which is 1st position, etc., etc. The reason I have to think of that is because on the circle of fifths, the first thing you ever get taught in traditional music or anything is that it's the order of sharps or flats. Well, it's a slightly different order. Like, for example, B's got 5 sharps, E's got 4 sharps, 3's, A's got 3, etc. You know, C's got none. You know, G's got 1, D's got 2. You know, etc. F's got 1 flat, B flat. But in positions, it's 1 more. So when you're in 5 sharps, you're in the 6th position. But forget all this sharp and flat business, because you don't need any of that as a blues player. That's just my mumbo jumbo nonsense, alright, that I'm talking, just to explain. Get people into perhaps looking at side slipping. This is something that I coach with people who've got some experience, and there's reasons for why we can side slip in blues the way we would use in jazz in a much more complex way. But in blues we can utilize this. But not only can we utilize it, it helps you gain facility once you've cracked the basic forms of blues. Alright? So that's it for today. I'll put an odd video related to this one on the circle of fifths and explain how that works. I'll put that video in the description box. I can never remember. It'll be down there, won't it? That might be that side. Anyway, I'll put it in the description box for you. And thumbs up, subscribe. I'll play a couple of licks out at the end. And guess what? I'll catch you on the rebound.